Hey, y'all, welcome to Let's Be True, a podcast where we take real questions and go straight to the scripture for real answers. And together we will seek out the truth together. And more importantly, who the truth is. So this morning I have with me Mr. Rob Fultz. He is a champion of raising up the next generation. And that's really what we're focusing on today is talking about the next generation, especially from a Christian's perspective in general, and also for
Mhm.
those who want to go into ministry and what that looks like. And he's an expert, and he was chaplain at Lee University when I was there for a little bit, and he was in charge of all of that. So that's how I first got to know him.
Yeah.
And now he is the director for C2, a program we'll get into and talk about a little bit. But Rob, I just wanted you to take a second to introduce yourself to the audience and just let them know who you are.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for having me on the show, man. It's an honor, and I've enjoyed definitely watching the Lord work in your life over the last several years, and excited to be on here with you guys. But a little bit about me. Yeah, I am passionate about the next generation. That is my primary focus and ministry. And so I wasn't always that. I have been a senior pastor. I was a youth pastor for a while. My wife and I have been missionaries overseas in Europe, and church planners and all those things, right? So we have been in ministry for 25 plus years, and my heart just keeps drifting back to the next generation. I think some of it could be my own immaturity level, perhaps, but at the end of the day, I really think it's just the passion that God has given me to raise up the next generation of leaders. And so that's what I have been focusing on for probably the last decade or so, mostly at the collegiate level, like you mentioned, as the chaplain at Lee University, and then other ways, and now serving as the executive director of C2 Next Gen. So a little bit of quick history there, but absolutely the thing that I am most passionate and concerned about is raising up the next generation of local church leaders, missionaries, pastors, uh, who have that call but don't know how to step into that call. And so that's really what I'm dedicating my time, my energy, and my experience to.
Awesome, awesome. And it's something I see quite evidently. There's a lot of that needed.
Yeah.
I know people going in ministry, if they're plugged into a local small body, maybe they don't have an opportunity to serve in a church the way that they would like to. And this is just a great program. The C2 Next Gen is a excellent program of being able to teach you real life ministry and give you real life ministry opportunities. So, with your involvement in the next generation and seeing that, tell us a little bit specifically about what
Yeah.
C2 is and its goals.
Sure. Yeah. So C2 Next Gen was created about 4 years ago in North Georgia, in the Atlanta area, by a gentleman named Tom Madden. Tom Madden, certainly within our tribe, Vonnie is well known. He started the Winterfest movement more than 40 years ago, with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of teenagers who have come through Winterfest, experienced the call to ministry, salvation. I mean, it's been a powerful sort of next gen movement for, like I said, more than 40 years. Even my own mom got saved at her Winterfest in her 40s. So it's a little bit personal to me. But anyway, so Tom Madden started this program, C2 Next Gen, because he saw and understood the need that he was facing in his own region as a leader. He served as the administrative bishop of the North Georgia region, and now is serving as the Secretary General for the Church of God, our denomination worldwide. But this need was really the thing that stirred him, because, like you said, there are a lot of opportunities out there, and we don't have a great system, plan, process, or way to put young adults, the next generation leaders, into ministry positions. And so he started C2. I came on just a little over a couple years ago now to be the executive director, kind of put the systems, processes, nuts and bolts together with that. And so that's how it started. But C2 really is what I call a boot camp style training program. It basically runs from May until August, mid-August, depending if you do all the phases. The first phase is a 2-week intensive at one of our locations, and we're launching 3 additional locations this year in San Antonio, Texas, New York, and in Fresno, California. But one of our locations where we'll bring you in for 2 weeks, we'll do on-site training with leaders within specific ministry fields, as well as general ministry and leadership conversations. It's very practical, very much, as you said earlier, in the field, on the ground, front lines type of training. So we teach you how to marry and bury. We teach you how to do baptisms and communions. We teach you some of those basic nuts and bolts of church administration, church budgeting, church strategic planning, leadership development, right? So it's a very, very practical, hands-on intensive that runs about 12 to 14 hours every day for 2 weeks. Another part of that is we do model exposure, what we call site visits. And so we're going to take you to several different ministries and organizations where you can see how they run their operations and their ministries, and you actually get to talk to the people who are doing that and asking them questions. If you're a youth pastor, you'll spend time with a youth pastor. If you have a desire to be a missionary, you'll get time to spend with missionaries and people who do outreach. And then the third thing that we do in that 2 weeks is we actually put you in what I call real ministry experience and real ministry environments. You will actually go out, you will preach, you will teach, you'll share testimonies, you'll do service projects, things like that, where you're actually doing hands-on ministry. And many of our students that come through for the first time, they know they have a call, they want to go into ministry, but they've never preached before. And so we give you those opportunities in real environments, and then we help you craft and we help you hone in those skills a little bit sharper. That's only the first phase. The second phase then is an internship. It's optional, but they last about 8 weeks, some longer, depending on what you do. And we set you up with paid internships at some of our partner churches and organizations all over the country. And so you can go overseas as well as stay domestic, but that's all in the second phase, and that takes you into August. So C2 Next Gen, in a nutshell, our goal, our passion, our heart is to create global connections to the Great Commission so that we can help build the next generation, build bridges for the next generation to step into their ministry calling and their ministry purpose. Now, in all of that, it's still very, very spiritual. We spend the first 2 hours every single day in prayer through the program, because if you can't hear the voice of the Holy Spirit, you can't lead in ministry. And so that's our focus. That's what we do at C2 in a very quick glimpse.
Oh, well, no, you hit about every single point I think that you could have hit right there.
Yeah.
So it's good.
I've had a lot of practice. I
Yeah.
travel quite a bit talking about C2, so I can give the elevator speech pretty quick.
You're like, I got this down pat, man. That's good. No, it's good. And we're going to break this down here for a second and dwell on some places, because I know that this is an area that almost every area of the country deals with, being able to, hey, it's hard for us to, even on a college level, to be able to show practically what this ministry looks like. Because I know when I was at Lee University and was in pastoral ministry majors, it was one thing to be able to hear it in the classroom, to be able to do it. Right. And now I'm hearing a few of the things that my professors would say, but I'm just now being able to apply them as these situations come up. So that was, I had a little bit of a leg up because I was working at a church during that time, Be for Church of God. Right. So I was able to apply some of the stuff as we're going. But this right here, I mean, it even sounds like it's a great partnership with some colleges, and to be able to help that going as especially those who are in ministry majors, to be a companion with that so they can have practical experience.
I'm on a college campus as we speak, doing this very thing. We're building relationships with colleges, Christian colleges, universities, where we can, that want their ministry students. And even if they're not quote unquote ministry students, if you're a college student, you have a call to ministry, I don't care if you're business major, nursing major, doesn't matter. C2 is a good fit for you, because we give you, again, the tactical sort of experiences and tools you need to step out with a good first step. We're not going to teach you everything. We're not going to show you everything. We're not going to be able to give you everything that you need, but we can give you a leg up. And I think that's what C2 does really, really well, is we expedite your ability to step into a ministry role and really do that with some confidence.
And I know one of your goals towards the later half is that trying to get them into a paid internship and
Mm,
also a full-time job after
yes.
that. And I don't know if you try to treat that as a guarantee or how that works, but I know you're plugged in with a lot of different ministries and churches who, because I don't know how many people realize this, but the church as a whole is in desperate need of young
Yeah.
ministers to be able to fill roles and places. And what you're acting as and C2 is acting as is kind of the middleman there to be able to
Mm,
find the people who want to be in ministry and connect them with the people who are desperately searching for somebody to be in their
right.
ministry. So you just kind of act as like, hey, let's plug this into over here and get people connected and hearing the hearts behind each ministry and kind of also seeing, hey, would these two people work well together? Is that kind of pretty accurate there?
Yeah, no, it's pretty accurate. Yeah, I mean, the internship is a great opportunity for them to just get real ministry experience in the first place, right? When we start talking about the next gen and ministry preparation, what we don't need are more coffee runners. And that's not bad or
Mhm.
negative. Like, I still stack chairs when necessary. You know, we all do those things. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about that, but it's really about preparing and training and developing the leaders that are coming behind us. And so we make sure that our internship programs are actually that, ministry internships. Okay. And so we focus really, really hard on that. We don't guarantee anything. So we have several churches that have reached out to us about getting interns, and sort of our mantra, our rule of thumb is this: not every intern gets a church, and not every church gets an intern, right? Because we can't fabricate roles and opportunities that we don't have, and we're not just going to give you somebody because you need a warm body, right? So I may have a media intern, but you need a children's pastor. I'm not going to put them there because that's not what God has called them to do, right? So that's kind of the rule of thumb. But then, yeah, our major goal is to actually place young adults in full-time positions, and we've had several, not all or most, but we've had several young adults come out of C2 immediately and find jobs. I just talked to 3 of them this week at another event that I was at in Cleveland, and for NYLA, National Youth Leaders Association. I was there for that, and 3 of my recent graduates got full-time positions right out of C2, and I still have people calling looking for people. Even before we got on the show, I texted a young adult couple, and they're on the market, and so I'm going to be working today to try to get them into some possible ministry opportunities. So yeah, one of our major goals is to get young adults into ministry positions full time. The average age of a pastor in America is well over 50. It could even be in the 60s now. I don't remember the exact metric. But in the next 10 years, the crisis is already here, right? But the next 10 years, it's like we're going to see the result of the tsunami, right? So we see the water receding. Like, we don't have young leaders, we don't have young ministers, we don't have young people or anyone really to come in and take these churches that are coming open, backfill positions. So the water is receding, and if we don't do something, then in about 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a tsunami of challenges and adversities with the local church in America. And that's not just our tribe; it's every denomination. And so C2 is one thing. We need about 100 C2s in America to help stem this crisis. And so I think if we do our part, we work at it, I think we'll make a difference as best we possibly can.
hmm And I know that you are an observer of what's happening with society and stuff. And I'm going to ask you this, and if you
Yeah.
haven't completely articulated that within yourself, that's completely fine. But what do you think has led to this crisis of needing young ministers? Because I know you're really solution orientated in trying to stem that and resolve that issue. Which is fantastic, and I have full faith and belief
Yeah.
that that's something that can be done. But what was it that led up to where we're at now, and how can we prevent that from happening in the future?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. It's $1 million question. I'm not sure if anyone has um, the right answer. I think there are several right answers, actually. I think number one is we abdicated the responsibility of raising up the next generation to programmatic structure. I'm a huge fan of young adult ministry and youth ministry. What we don't need probably are more games and gimmicks. What we actually need are more discipleship oriented, youth focused programs where they're actually engaging in the body of the local church. And we're not relegating them to some programmatic structure where they never actually are a part of the future of the church. So I think that that's one thing. And listen, it worked. Like the games, the hype, all that, it worked. We've built some amazing youth groups with that stuff. The problem is it doesn't have a high yield once they graduate high school. Every church in America, every denomination in America has one major ministry gap, and it's between 18 and 30. No one has really solved the mystery of how to graduate a high school student from your youth group, then keep them engaged in the local church, even if they go to college. Because if they go to college, you know, they're facing a whole new set of challenges, adversities, opportunities, questions, blah, 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 right? So we know that. But even if they stay in our local church, we haven't done a really good job of activating them into leadership, into ministry, into opportunities for them to continue to grow, et cetera. It's not a criticism. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying this is the dilemma that we face, right? So now we're kind of reaping some of the fruit of neglecting the continuation of discipleship and growth into, if you want to call it from youth into adult church, right? There's just not a good bridge. I think number two is the church, and again, not a criticism, just an assessment. This is a research question that's been answered by a lot of people. The church is notoriously slow at change, right? And in some ways, that's very good. Like, we don't want to just flippantly move with the culture as it moves. And in other ways, we've not done a good job of integrating change into the local church, where we do accommodate better the next generation's opportunity and ability to speak into the local church. So thinking about technology, right? Pre-COVID, only 27% of the churches in America had some kind of online experience. 27%. Post-COVID, it's 92%, and probably higher than that now. So forced change is basically what has happened. But all that to say, the next generation is, especially Gen Z, and especially now leading into Gen Alpha, most entrepreneurial generation to ever live. You know, I'm not the first one to say that. They're highly tech-oriented, digital natives, and so they want to bring those things into their ministry callings and expressions. And a lot of our local church engagement doesn't accommodate that, not because they don't want to, a lot because they don't know how to. And so that's another dilemma. And I think that's part of the conversations of what we can have of why we haven't done a good job of replenishing our ministry leadership pipelines, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of churches are now recognizing that. I mean, we have the rise now of the huge YA young adults culture, and
Yes.
almost every single, you see these popping up on almost in every single church.
Yeah.
So I think churches are recognizing that there is an issue from those was it 18 to 18 to 29-year-old kind of gap, 18 to 30,
Right.
wherever that
And those
area
are generic
is.
ages, obviously. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think people are starting to recognize that churches are obviously starting to recognize that. Now, whether or not that's the solution, I think it is, at least for the time being. But my fear, my problem, because I'm just trying to observe as well. Like, I have questions to be like, all right, is this the solution? I think C2 is a fantastic solution to this, to actually getting it plugged in. I fear what we might be doing, and I think this is also systematic to what youth groups with the games and all that has done. It will just postpone people from going to church from that 30 to 40 age gap if they go out of that, because I think the negative side of youth groups, even kids' church to young adults, is when it becomes a church within the church. Like
Yes.
all of these ministries need to be underneath the headship of obviously the pastor and the mission. So, um, for me here at Gateway, youth groups used to, go call. You had different youth group names like all
Mm.
together. I grew up
Oh
with
yeah. Man,
Vortex
in the
Student Ministry,
90s,
right?
bro, in the 90s, we
Yeah,
had some fire youth group names. 2000s, they're
yeah,
awesome.
man. But one of the things I've been trying to be intentional with as a youth pastor, and I'm still a brand new youth pastor. I've been doing this is my third year doing this, so I'm complete still baby in this. But one of the things I did when I got here is listen, I don't want to name my youth group something random. I just want
Right.
to call it Gateway Youth. Like this is part of the church, and my goal is to help. We don't have anything on Sunday morning, so we are together with the church on Sunday morning and trying to also train them within church culture, because that's another thing that I have noticed is a lot of people don't even know like what it is to be in church or to raise their hands and stuff. So
Right.
there is that training ground that goes on through youth and then also with young adults. And one of the things I do notice with a few young adults groups is it very much becomes a church within the church, and you almost don't
Yeah.
even see those people integrated within the Sunday morning church service. So I don't know necessarily what any of that means, and I'm not saying necessarily that it's negative. It's just those are some thoughts and observations that I have with that. Now, I think C2 follows a very, very biblical model. And I guess what the fear might be with my part is we have focused on raising up the next generation almost like Saul did David. Hey,
Yeah.
go over here and do this stuff. And
Mm.
if you fail, oh well, I guess I get to stay wherever I'm at. And if you succeed, oh, I'll just give you the next task. So I think the negative side, the worst part of a ministry could be with training up the next generation is simply just sending somebody somewhere to where they potentially have potentially could fail
Right.
and do not care if they do one way or the other.
Right.
Now, I think the best biblical model of training up the next generation is that Elijah Elisha example.
Hmm.
Elijah took Elisha with him everywhere that he went. And even the moments where Elijah was like, listen, you stay back here, Elisha was trained well enough to know, I'm going to go with you. Where you go, I go, because I know the Lord is going with
Yeah.
you. And Elijah didn't just show Elisha what to do. He actually gave him instructions to go do it himself. It's like, hey, you go do this with me, and I'm going
Yeah.
to watch you do it, to the point where Elisha was like, listen, I want exactly what you have, and I want more of it. I want a
Right.
double portion. So this partnering along with young adults, with the next generation of ministers, or even just the body of Christ, to be able to say, listen, this is how we go and do it. Like, I'll
Yeah.
go to the Jordan and you come to the Jordan with me. I'll go over here and you go with me. And actually going through with them and saying, this is how we do it. So they can see how it's done. They can practice and go about doing it themselves and be corrected where correction is needed. And it's not just simply like, hey, it's a fail or pass situation.
Right. I think, well, first of all, you actually have touched on probably my favorite leadership example in the entire Bible. Like, I'll try not to get too crazy here because I could go for days on Elijah and Elisha. It is literally, they're literally two of my favorite characters. And I think you brought up the most salient points of the whole conversation. But really, what you're talking about when we start talking about the church within the church conversation, there's two fundamental dynamics at play here. One is a discipleship question, right? Discipleship is so much more than just biblical content acquisition, right? It's so much more than that. Discipleship is the modeling process. Discipleship is that corrective process. Discipleship is that coaching and development process, right? So we have a fundamental discipleship problem when there's a church within a church. It's not biblical, right? I'm not talking about multi-sites. That's different. We're talking about ministry programs where they're isolated to the point and inculcated to the point where there's There's no external or internal connectivity to the whole body, right? That's dangerous, right?
Mhm.
That's what I think as a former senior leader, a lot of times we get afraid of, is because now you have an entire entity of people that you have no influence over, and that's challenging. And it's not, in my opinion, it's not the biblical model, and I think you're right about that. So you get to the Elijah and Elisha conversation. So there's a discipleship issue, and then there's just a fundamentally unaware leadership conversation. I do leadership consulting, leadership development all over the world. I literally do this all over the world, and I am shocked at how many leaders just don't know basic leadership conversations, realities, principles, solutions, theories, all of the things. It still blows my mind that people like me are even necessary with the amount of content that's out there and the people that do it at such a higher level than I do. We have access to all that. I'm shocked at how many leaders don't know how to do basic leadership stuff. And I'm talking very simple stuff, like how do you integrate a new staff member into your team? The first 90 days, like very simple stuff. So the discipleship leadership conversation are relevant. And I think that's very evident in the Elijah and Elisha conversation. It's why it's one of my favorite passages, stories, examples in the entire Bible. You're right. Elijah discipled Elisha in the most literal sense. He was in the school of prophets, right? He was discipling him to be a prophet. Therefore, he had to know the word of God. He had to know the voice of God. He had to understand the spirit of God. He had to understand the movement of God. He had to understand the power of God, right? So Elijah had to disciple him spiritually in this way. But Elijah also had to teach him leadership principles and realities from a relational perspective. The reason why Elisha said, I cannot leave you, is because Elijah had invested in his life to the point where Elisha understood more than just from a ministry standpoint. Elijah really became the mentor and the father figure and the person who just craved to be around his leadership. Hmm. And that is a whole separate conversation. Are we the kind of leaders that young adults want to be around? Right. And that's a really important question to ask in this generation, because if you aren't, then they're not going to come to where you are. If you're not a person that they feel like they can connect with, if you're not a person that has integrity, if you're not a person that has humility, if you're not a person that has appropriate vulnerability, right? There's appropriate and inappropriate vulnerability. That's a whole different leadership conversation. But these things Elijah modeled for Elisha, to the point where Elisha said, I don't care what happens. I don't care where you go. I'm going. And so I think when we have those conversations about church within a church, for me, it boils down to really those two basic principles: discipleship and leadership. And we've got to do a better job at both. We're really good at church performance. We're really good at church aesthetics, which I love, by the way. I'm a hard worshiper, if you will. Like I like all the things, but we've got to get way stronger in the leadership and discipleship conversation of the local church. And I think, that's just a big part of the journey.
And now I'm a strong believer, and I've had this conversation on a few other my podcast episodes with people. It's like, listen, I'm not talking political solution to political problems, if we say that. Like, these are issues in the Bible.
Yes.
So we're only going to deal with it with biblical solutions, right? This isn't just a statistic problem with why there's no young people raising up and why older generations can't find the young people. Like, these are biblical. These are problems that we see throughout the Bible, and the only way we're going to be able to solve it is by using the Bible. And so you're bypassing a lot of these equations. It's like, because what the C2 mentorship is basically is the Elisha method. It's like, hey, we are taking this and we're applying it biblically, and we're sending people out just like the Bible does.
A great mentor of mine once said, every problem you face in the church, there's a solution in Scripture. There is. And I think there's a solution biblically to the crisis that we're facing. The question is now, always has been and always will be, are we willing to embrace what it's going to take to change the course, right? So one of my favorite things, I say it all the time, is there's no growth without change, and there's no change without pain. And a lot of times when we have to face these hard decisions, both personally and corporately as a church and as church leaders, it's the pain piece. It is painful adjusting things that need to be adjusted in order to accommodate the future of the church, but it has to be done. The alternative is you just run your course until you die with nothing to show for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe not nothing to show for it. That's a little bit harsh. I retract that statement, but you understand what I'm saying. If you don't evolve, if you don't change, you die. And that's kind of the scenario that we're in. We're in a change or die scenario right now.
And that's the problem is too with Christians, and that's the harder part for us is, listen, if there's cultural problems and we're letting the cultures come up with the solutions, and there's going to be two sides to that solution, as Christians, we're like, listen, I don't think either of you are right. Because culture trying to come up to a solution that is not biblical, that we got to literally compare the Bible up to it and say, like, all right, this doesn't measure up right here, and this doesn't measure up right here. I think everyone's wrong. I think this is what Scripture's saying that we need to do. And that's the hard part, because you're going to have to find that middle, quote unquote, ground that is the Bible.
It's a razor's edge, right? You have to be willing to be in some ways what people would, some people disparage it, but it does have some benefits, is an attractional model of ministry, right? So whatever that is or has been or will be, there's an element that is necessary for the local church to function in our culture. Whatever that attractional piece is, whether it's high liturgy or heavily integrated AI concepts, holographic guest speakers, I don't know, like, there's that attractional piece, right? But at the same time, it's not so much that you incorporate, it's the power behind the why you're incorporating it and what you're incorporating, right? It's all very intentional, very purposeful, very biblical approaches, right? So it is that middle ground. We can't just go from one extreme to the next. Like, we're not a church that embraces technology, and now all we're going to do is technology. It doesn't work like that. So you know what I mean. So I think you're right. It's finding that narrow path, if you will, to walk in.
And I think that's a bridge we have to gap. And I think you have to gap even when placing, hey, the younger generation who is more technologically savvy to the older generation of, hey, we used to go just buy this one computer that did this one thing, even to like, hey, we got to get subscriptions now. It's like, all right, that's a huge, painful culture shift.
Exactly.
And also trying to place that young person with the older person to be able to have those conversations in a civilized manner of being like, hey, this is why we need this for that. And they're like, well, do we need this extra package over here? Like, well, technically no, but it looks cool, and bridging that that conversation there.
I think this is also an opportunity. We talk about solutions. I think this is an opportunity for churches to realize it's a great way to incorporate the next generation into the leadership of the church. I'm a digital learner. You're a digital native. We're on vastly different planes. I want to embrace it as much as I can. This AI revolution that we're in, I'm trying to get on all the things. I use ChatGPT for stuff or whatever. For you, you're a native, right? I'm always going to be a digital learner. But the point is, if we can incorporate the voices of the next generation into the local church, let's incorporate them in a way that they can contribute very strongly and let them help us resolve some of these gaps and these bridges that we're trying to build, right? Because you don't need me teaching on AI, even though I do sometimes. I need you teaching on AI, right? This is your language. And so why not invite youth and young adults into elders meetings, and why not have them be a part of the future of the church? And we start talking about conversations when it comes even to outreach, because think about it, Vonnie, outreach is no longer us just going out to the downtown area and singing some songs. Outreach is now on Discord. Outreach is now on Oculus. Outreach is now on Metaverse. Outreach is now in digital spaces that I'll never be able to get to because I don't know how, but you do. So I think this is the golden opportunity we have to walk that middle ground together. Is to give a voice to the next generation in areas where they are strong and I am not, like us older leaders, and give you a space and a place to really flex your muscles while we disciple you and while we give you good, sound leadership development, that relational Elisha piece. So those are just, I think, some good opportunities.
Yeah. And I think the negative side too, there's the positive model, and I think the most positive model biblically that we can have is that Elisha. Now, I think the tendency of the older generation is to become that Saul mentality towards David. Like if the thing goes the most wrong that it can go, it looks like that. To like, hey, we're even going to kill off the next generation because it's not looking like exactly what I want it to look like. Right. Now, for the younger generation, I think that looks like Absalom to David. It's, hey, I want what I want now. I'm not going to wait for it. I'm not going to honor anything you do, and I'm going to spit on your face because of it. And that's how that looks like the worst that it can be. But the best model, I think, is this Elisha method that you have going here in this C2 movement.
Yeah. And man, that's so good. I want to dig into that a little bit. But I mean, so what did David do when Saul tried to kill him? He fled. And where did he flee? He fled to the very people he tried to destroy, the Philistines, right? David and Goliath. He actually went to the Philistine camp, right? So this is exactly what our young adult culture is doing. When they can't find a place in the church, they go to the very place that will embrace them, and that's the external culture. And they sow their gifts, their abilities, their talents, their resources there, right? Because they're accepted. And so, and then the converse side, and I love that you point out the Absalom spirit. I mean, that's a real thing, right? But again, for me, that's a discipleship and a leadership question. Not that it solves everything, and not that it's going to prevent mistakes or big errors, or not that it's not going to even prevent the Absalom spirit from occurring in a young adult. But it certainly is going to really remedy and nip in the bud earlier a lot of the potential for those things to happen. If we have good discipleship, we got good leadership development, I think you stand a much, much better chance of that young leader, even if they don't stay in your local congregation, moving on to a different congregation where they can invest their talents, gifts, and abilities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So it's finding that balance, and it's also knowing the negative side of like how it could go the worst. So like for me, like I'm constantly thinking like, is there any area of my life that I'm acting like Absalom? And even to the point where I feel like I'm still relatively young. I'm a youth pastor, but my youth looks at me like I'm an old man, trying to shave all my hair off at all these youth events to prove it to me. But I also had to keep in mind, listen, I don't need to have that spirit of Saul that's not letting them have opportunities and raising them up. So is that both like, am I being like Elijah and Elisha in the situations that they matter? Because I do have people that I am mentoring, and I have people who are mentoring me, and I want to show honor towards both.
And you will always need to be aware of both. Listen, I'm 51. And so I'm still aware of the Absalom spirit that could rise up in me very, very easily, right? Man, if I were in charge of this, and I would do it that way, and whatever. Like that never goes away, right? We always will have to be aware of those two things. Now, maybe at some point when we get to a certain age or a certain space, those subside at some capacity, but I'm not there yet. So I still have to be aware of my own spiritual condition and my own heart, my own thoughts and my own words, my own actions, that could lend itself or open the door to being either Saul or Absalom towards a David, right? So I'm still very well aware of that. So that's just a part of the journey that you've got to maintain throughout your entire ministry career, if you want to call it that. Why? Because we're always going to have the opportunities to offend and be offended in both directions.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to be aware of it.
So I think throughout this whole conversation we've had is we've kind of done a good job of identifying the issues that we have and also presenting the solutions biblically, which I believe C2 is one. And I'll speak to that personally. The first round of C2, I was not a part. I chauffeured a few people around, like by driving them around to different churches. And one of the churches we visited was actually the church that I'm working in now. And it got me plugged in to where I am at now without me even being a part of the program per se. It just kind of happened that way. And I was like, so I always give huge credit to C2 because it got me a job and I wasn't even a part of the program necessarily. Right. So it got me plugged in here. So I definitely see it. And I had a student, one of my youth that I had raised up here. She went through the program this past year and she's in her internship. And I believe even it's a full-time job is what she's been telling me now. So I believe in it. I think that it works. And I think that this is one of the best biblical model you have. Now, I know that you had a single, it's placed primarily in Georgia. Do you want to speak to anything off of that? Like, because I know we need more C2. We need more programs like this and even bigger.
Yeah, primarily the main site is in North Georgia, Legacy Retreat Center. It's a beautiful retreat center. And we've been able to, in the 3 locations that we're launching in 2026, May of 26, both in San Antonio and in Fresno. We've already got those locations locked in, fantastic locations. They're able to accommodate a lot of people. It's the right setup for what we do. The one in New York, we're still working out some of the logistics, but we're very confident that we'll have that up and running before May with no issues. So we're still working on that one, but at least for the other 2 in San Antonio and Fresno, we have great locations there as well. And then coming up, you'll be able to register. You can actually apply now for C2 online. All the information we have is on c2nextgen.org, c2nextgen.org, and you can go on the website and pretty much find the information that you need. And if you have any questions, there's a contact form there as well where we can answer any questions that you have. But yeah, it started in North Georgia, and that's kind of our primary location still at this point, but we're eager to expand even outside of these 3 locations over the next couple of years. We hope to have several C2 chapters across America, maybe even overseas as well, with our global ambassador, Coleman Bailey. He's got numerous overseas contacts and opportunities, and so we're slowly working our way towards overseas expressions as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, Coleman, he's somebody I'd like to have on here the next, if I can ever pin him down for a time to be able to talk about all the awesome stuff that God has happening in his life. But yeah, it is good luck.
Man lives out of a carry-on suitcase. He really, really does. He really does. So he's hard to get a hold of, but once you do, it's always great. So.
Yeah, it is great. But I believe the C2 program, I think we need, like you were even saying earlier, I think we need 100 C2s throughout this country and this alone, because I do not think that we were going to run out of people needing this, at least in the, I hate to use the word pandemic that we're facing right now, or epidemic that we're facing right now, with churches needing this, needing young ministers to come in, and young ministers, people who want to become in ministry, to find a place to be able to plug in and get trained in the process of that. So I think we need it. We need more of it. And I think
it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you got the crisis that we've kind of been talking about, but then you also have the stirring revival that's happening across the earth. And these young leaders want to be trained for ministry. And where do they go? And, we're just one of many, many options out there, but we believe in what we're doing. I see the results every single year. So that's the other piece of it.
Yep. And I'm a testimony. I have a student that's a testimony. I've talked to several people that are a testimony because it does work. I've talked to real people that have been in this program
Mm.
and seen the awesome work that you have done and Tom Madden has in and leading this and giving it direction and just all the parts that you have put into this time, effort, and growing it. And I see it, and I think it's awesome. And I'm gonna pray a blessing over you at the end of this. But I think it's something that's definitely needed and is timely for a time such as this.
Well, I appreciate it, man. We love what you're doing as well. We're very proud of you.
I appreciate it. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up here today. I do want to, one final note. I think we
Sure.
talked about it a little bit. Specifically, like, who are you looking for in C2? Who do you want to apply? Say again where that's at, like age range, wherever they're at, walks of life. Yeah.
We're looking specifically for young adults between the ages of 18 and 30 who have a call to full-time ministry or missions. Now, you may not know exactly what that looks like, but that's okay. But you know that God has placed on your heart a call to serve his local church, to serve on the mission field, to serve in ministry in some capacity. And again, that can be worship, media, youth, young adults, senior leader, all children, all of those kinds of things. So, but that's primarily our target is 18 to 30 with a clear call to full-time ministry. That's who we're after.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't matter if you are graduating high school right now, you don't have plans for college, if you're in college, wherever you're at, if you're married, if you're single.
Married, single. We've had married couples. We had several who just graduated last year from high school. The oldest we've had so far is 28. We had a guy last year who was 27, who'd been in full-time ministry for 6 years, but C2 was what he needed to take that next step. And so it kind of runs the gamut. But yeah, that's kind of our target.
Yeah, excellent. And the location for that was c2nextgen.org, correct?
c2nextgen.org. Yep.
All right. And I'll make sure to put those descriptions in the website when I post this out there. So you will be able to click on the link in the comments so you could find it and sign up and share this video, let people know about it. If you know somebody who is interested in going into the ministry and needs this practical field, you at home that are watching now, like, share this out to them, send it out to them, get it into their hands so they can hear the heart behind this ministry, who's leading it, and how they can get plugged into ministry, which is amazing. So, Rob, thank you so much for being on here today. It's always a joy talking to you, and I've had a lot of fun with this conversation. And
Same here.
You pushed
I think
a
we
lot
could
of
have
my
gone a lot longer.
Definitely. Well, we'll have to have a whole separate conversation to talk about just that Elisha. I think we could go a whole lot like that. I think between the two of us, we got a book or something we could put out with that. So I think it's excellent, though. So thank you for being on here, and I'm just going to pray a blessing over Rob and you who are watching at home. And thank you for being on here. Remember, let's be bold in what we believe. Let's be true together. So I'm going to pray us out. May the favor of the Lord rest upon you. May he establish the work of your hands. May his kindness and faithfulness be evident in your life. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. So go, may the Lord be with you. Thank you for being on with Let's Be True today, and hope to see you next time.